Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Goss. This week, we are taking a step back. And so the question is, if we could go back to June 2020, what is one advice you would give yourself in terms of ReShape Co if you knew what you know today?
Ooh.
I would say,
don't do it.
Sheen off the bat already making this very juicy.
End call.
I would say that, like on a serious note, I would say that have like your mission in mind, but the way how we do it, make that more agile. Like see what goes up, what's down. Like take it as it comes. Like don't plan way ahead and like be stuck to that. But just have like the broader picture in mind and then take like one step at a time and see how you're like closer to that and see what other people react to and like build from.
I would like to echo what JJ is saying. I think one thing that maybe we didn't really think about, because we started as pro bono and then eventually we moved to not for profit and now we're moving again. I think having that foresight at the beginning, trying to think long term, what do we want with this? Yes, we're starting now as pro bono, but let's say in 3 years' time, where do we want us to be? And it would have been useful to just have that bigger image and then work on day to day until then.
I think I don't fully agree with that. Like in my head, it was more around the fact that my like thought on this was more with thinking slightly short term, is because we started in the middle of a pandemic, right? So we obviously needed to have like a specific vision for the pandemic. And maybe we should have thought about like what we could be after, when things are back to normal, etc. But I think we did have initially, if you guys remember, we did create a 1 year plan, a 2 year plan, and those things change quite a bit. Yeah. So I would say maybe a little more short termism would have been good at that point. Now we can think long term, right? Now when we know there's some level of stability and we need to think where are we going to be in 2 years, where are we going to be in 5 years. But I
mean, with respect to that point, right, we didn't start off wanting to become a Gen Z consulting thing. That was going to be a long tenure kind of a thing. That was at least I saw it as a way to sort of immediately help the people that needed help. And that was all of our goal at the time. That's why we all agreed to do it. It was not because we got some monetary incentive out of it or anything like that, or had some plan for that. You know what I mean? So I would say, with what Anuj said, our goals have changed. We have changed massively. Would you agree that you're the same person that you were in June 2020? I highly doubt it. Yeah. So I think that it's not fair to set those kind of long-term goals. And I would also say, with respect to what I would do differently, I guess we had a community of about 210 plus people at a given at our peak. And I think there was a better way to sort of mobilize that, but we weren't able to capitalize on it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But maintaining engagement in environments that could be highly siloed is something that we were never familiar with because, we've never led a company of 200 plus people. So I think that was an interesting learning, but if we were able to mobilize that better, maybe there would have been some sort of a next level kind of a thing that we could have hit earlier on.
But also I just clarify in terms of what I was saying was not having a long-term plan. It was more in terms of having that mission and okay, so our mission right now is still to engage with SMEs. Mm-hmm. So just having that the same throughout, and then as and when things go, you pick up what is happening and build on that.
Yeah.
So it's just to have a strong mission, not a strong plan. That was what I...
Yeah. That's what I meant as well. Just knowing your values and what do you want ReShape to stand for? Not having a plan, but just knowing what we are.
Because I think we did our conversation on the mission and things like that was way into our company. I think it was 6 months in, which I wish we did at the first few weeks. So that's what I would have changed, just to see what everyone wants ReShape to be. It's good that it's aligned, but I wish that was like I would have, if I was to start a company again, or if I was supposed to start ReShape again, it would have been to have that conversation early on.
Yeah, fair enough. I think, but like with that, there's also the idea that like, a lot of why we decided to do like Gen Z and stuff like that came after like we realized that once we came into like 1 month or 2 months of experience. So I think initially, like at least in the first 6 months, let's say, or first 3 months, depending on the kind of business industry, whatever it is, you should have the conversation initially about what the mission is, but allow like a decent amount of change, maybe like in the first 3 to 6 months, because like you won't know until you get like your foot into the industry what exactly you might be hoping for. But yeah, definitely one thing is that we should have had some kind of like conversation and like maybe at least like some like 3, 4 different things that we might be hoping to aim for initially.
I think because initially it was maybe like just to go with the flow. So like it was just like to balance that aspect.
But do you guys really think there's any way we could have like, avoided that, given the fact that it was like the early heights of a pandemic? No one knew what they were doing. Like, and we got into this totally new kind of a scenario. I don't think it was avoidable by any means. Like, you know what I mean? Like no one had the perspective or the experience to be like, this is something you could have changed. And even with respect to the mission and having that at the start, I think we've had this conversation like multiple times now about how that's evolved and how that's, caused us to go out of our comfort zone a lot of times, right? But I think, for example, even in my crowdfunding thing, initially we said that we want to democratize access for diverse founders. Like that was the goal. That's what we went after. But then we realized like, oh, actually, like it takes a high capital base to, get to that level where we can do that kind of support. So you need to build something else that builds critical mass so that you can tackle that problem later on. So I think it's not necessarily something that you learn instantly. It's always something that you learn in retrospect, something like we have right now.
Yeah, I agree that it is definitely like in retrospect. Like I think that if we started again with the same perspectives we had back then, we probably still wouldn't do that, because I think like all of us were new to like starting something. And like just that. But I think in like thinking about it now, I think it's important to just have that conversation, not necessarily stick with it for like a long period of time, but just like having that kind of conversation. Now, again, like in reality, if you ask me to like redo like the entire like ReShape journey, I still wouldn't change anything. This is just like, I guess, a reflection point as to like what it is.
Yeah.
But like if I actually had the opportunity to go change something, I wouldn't, because like a lot has worked out for us, and I think it's a consequence of the way things happen. So I think like I'm happy with the way we are at this point. So like if it was actually an action, I wouldn't. But in terms of like thinking and like reflecting, there are like multiple things that like we could have like done better, improved, and like I guess like in the grander scheme, just like learn from.
But yeah, like just
I guess
this
you can sort of
conversation made me reminisce like meet and greets with like, I think that was possibly one of my highlights. We're working with that big team, because I did enjoy those meet and greets, like where there was like I think 30 to 40 of us on that call. It was a fun time.
It was interesting to meet so many new people from like around the world and like learn what their journey was, like just to like see where because like it was literally people from the most random countries like coming together who I wouldn't have had access to otherwise. But now it's just that like that community, I guess. I agree with Joe, like we could have done a better job in terms of like keeping that community and like growing that. But I think in that point also, like those meet and greets, just like meeting people from like different walks of life was so interesting, and like to learn more about their motivations to join us also was so interesting.
No, but I actually don't have much to say in the fact that I do feel like I kind of like want to echo what Joel said. That is, we did what we knew like in those circumstances. We didn't know any better. Like honestly, like whatever we say now, it's something we would do in an ideal world, I feel like. But again, it's good to know that. It's good to like take these learnings so we can do it in the future. But in terms of what I do differently, community building, 100%. I agree with Joel then as well. Like, and personally, what I would do differently for myself is less complaining about what we haven't done and more of just doing. Like for myself as a note, when we started out, like, even for the future, like less complaining and more just doing it, myself. So, yeah.
On that point, a good note to end on is like, there's the idea that we like 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you might reminisce and think back to things that you might have done differently, and that's just because you have more knowledge at that point. But to accept that in those like in those circumstances at that point, with the knowledge you had, you did the best you could. I think that's the most important part of whenever you are reflecting. And yeah, that's it for the Goss this week. Thank you guys for joining, and we hope that you go back and think about your past projects.
Great.
You can cut out that part as well.
Bye.
Oh, good. Bye, guys. Change remove your jacket.
If this is not a freaking jacket.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
Someone's like, she knows clothes.
Yes, she's always like, just take off a layer.
Gokul, are you done hairdressing?
Throw that hairbrush, first of all, some 2 miles away.
Can you throw that on your bed?
Can you throw it out the window? Okay, let's start. It's recording.
Okay.
Okay.
One sec. Let Sheen. Please.
Let Sheen relocate.
I'm sorry.
Mean Sheen is moving. I repeat.
Okay.
Now she's sitting.
Go.
Okay. To aim for, like, that's important. Like, just don't beat yourself up about.
Have you guys seen that tattoo, like, no regrets? No regrets.
Yeah. That's so bad though. I would very much look at that.
Yeah, you just ruined my note that we were ending the like video on.
No regrets.
But yeah, I'm just gonna read.